Well, this is the seventh and final installment of our conversations on Stanley Hauerwas's Cross Shattered Christ Meditations on the Seven Last Words. And I want to thank those who have followed and gone along this pilgrimage with us, but I especially want to say thank you to Caitlin Childers Brown. Having Caitlin as a colleague in ministry is one of the great blessings in my ministry career. And it is good to be able to have these conversations that for people who we may have like parts of Hawaii and lots of Louisiana in common. But we come from different places and different generations, and I am so grateful to be listening and learning. Today, we just want to wrap up and then, as part of that, reflect on what for the tradition of the seven last words would be Jesus' last words, oh God, into your hands I commend my spirit. Generally speaking, Caitlin, I'm wondering if the readings and conversations have made any kind of difference one way or the other in your preparation or experience of Lent this year.
Yeah, I think they have forced me into some holy discomfort as we have wrestled on it. For those not at Freemason Street, you might not know that Bob's been preaching through all of these. So I feel like we've been usually filming these earlier on in the week or middle of the week or so. And so the whole week for me is kind of laced with these seven last words, forcing me to sit in them a little bit longer. And I think that's a good thing, but a bit of holy discomfort.
What a good concept, and what a needful thing for all of us, from the Holy Spirit who nurtures and also prompts us to be uncomfortable. Or in the seven last words, it feels to me that there's sort of an arc at work as I've gotten into reading them. Always at the beginning is Father forgive, and we hear Jesus at the cross, and those powerful words, very powerful words to me. Father forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. We get to the fourth word, which if it was a literary arc, would be the crest, and those are the words of exile, of abandonment, when Jesus is saying. He's gone from what seems like an intimate word, Father, forgive them, to the words of abandonment, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then we land today with these words, oh God, into your hands I commend my spirit. I'm wondering, and it may not, but I'm wondering if there's anything in that arc that might say anything to you as far as coming to grips with Jesus's life and death, or ties those together, or brings you on a bit of a journey.
I don't know. The words all together, all seven of them, I think do force a slow ponderance, and have in a way they feel like I feel like reading through this slowly has really helped me to kind of take those few days of Holy Week and really, or one day really, and stretch it out so it's much longer in a good way. They point to I don't know, the deliberateness of what Jesus was doing. They encompass so much theology in just seven short phrases. I think that you could write many a book on each of them. And so for me, I think they're almost a bit of the highlights of defining who Jesus is and what he was about in the world for us.
Considering the seventh word of, oh God, into your hands I commend my spirit, I'm wondering what you hear Jesus saying and what those words might mean for you.
So Hauerwas writes in this how they are the last words that are said at Episcopal funerals. I've never been to an Episcopal funeral, so I don't associate these words with a funeral, even though it makes sense that they are the last words that are spoken at many a funeral. And I'm sure that is in other denominations too. That doesn't surprise me. personally, I can't help but hear these words and also think of the previous word, that it is finished. I know that they're not right next to each other, but they feel like they should be, because to me, it is finished gives context to the into your hands I commend my spirit. And I think this is the one, well, I struggled with last week's words too because of what was going on in the news, but this is always, I always struggle with Good Friday and with this idea of Jesus descending into hell and what that might mean. And I know it's much easier, it's much more natural to focus on the resurrection, but sitting in that just that discomfort. I mean, even I'm making a face and I don't even mean to as I'm trying to describe it. I don't quite know what
Well,
to make
this
of
is
these
good.
words.
These are words to struggle with, and these are I think they're very much cross cultural or maybe anti-cultural.
Yeah.
We live in at least in North American culture, addiction, fame. There's so much
Hmm.
that is, to my point of view, death denying or life
Yeah.
denying,
And
and
this is death embracing.
this is death embracing. So I think that's really good. And I think to talk about the discomfort or talk about, God, how do we, here's Jesus. Um, I guess I've wanted to hear these as sort of words of trust. It's sort
Mm.
of like, you know, and I will lean back and mix up my gospels against the advice of New Testament
Easy.
teachers. Just say, because I think it all comes together. It's at the life of Jesus where he says, "Let this cup pass from me," and it seems
Yeah.
to me that Jesus is on this journey of trusting and then dealing with reality and then having to trust again. So I think it's very real in the experiences of the people around us. Into your hands, oh God. That to me is a sort of a statement of faith.
Yeah, and I think that's what maybe we should as Baptists be saying this at the end of funerals and in those hospice beds and in those moments of thinness and of ending and of death.
Well, you've
So
probably have done funeral planning too with folks who say, we don't want to be sad. This
yeah.
is a celebration. They had a great life.
Mhm.
I don't want to hear Psalm 23. I don't hear, which I understand with some folks, but I also know some of the people that we work with or I've worked with, they're just afraid of talking about death.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
They
feel like
don't
that's
want
a
to
lot
be
of it.
honest.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's hard not to have Good Friday in our
We
lives.
need it, whether we want to or not.
The very last words that Hauerwas uses to close his meditations, he says, "Draw near, fear not, and behold the mystery and the wonder of Jesus's cross." Can you resonate with that invitation to draw near? Is there just something you think we should hear about the meaning of the cross?
Yeah. I think as we're drawing to a close on this little book, I um I think there's a lot of hope to be heard as we uh embrace the mystery and the pain and the fear that sometimes surrounds conversations of the cross. And so I like where he ends it, because to me reading this book has been an invitation to enter into that um those strange few hours that naturally I so want to avoid. So
Absolutely.
I would challenge anyone who's willing to enter into that also.
Interesting too. You remind me with your those words from the creed. He descended into hell,
Yeah.
and Peter had Peter's one of Peter's writings has that odd little verse that nobody on the evangelical side tends to read, where he talks about he goes to preach to former
Right.
folks or whatever, and
Right.
I think what I've come to, and I need the reminder of more than once a year, is my feeling or my conviction, because it's not always my feeling, but my conviction that will inform the feeling, that there's nothing that happens to a human being that doesn't matter to God, and that there's no
Yeah.
place God won't go, metaphorically, theologically, really, so that ultimately, eventually, we will find love and wholeness. And it's, I think that's where I've begun to live into, and this may be a function of age, but I've started to live in some of Paul's words and some of those hymns about the hope of the cross, or staying near the cross, or Paul to say, I preach Jesus and him crucified. And at the Lord's Supper, he says we honor his death until he comes. And
Yeah.
I always want to go, and his resurrection, which is true, but I think we're hearing a word there about what it means to be human, and what it means that God is there, is our life, and there will be the paradise of His presence, for whatever that means. And I don't know, being real. I
Yeah.
hear being real in our time. So I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful.
Thank you.
Do you have a hope for Easter this year? You, family, or the world? So it's a bonus.
On a personal level, I just hope my child and we all make it out of the house with our outfits on, and without like food stains. I think for our people, for our church, I hope that they might be encouraged anew of Christ's presence and of the work of the Spirit that's already going on. It's a good Easter hope, but we're not dead yet.
Sort of like the Pope coming out of the
Yeah,
hospital.
exactly.
I
Yes.
love that. I'm still alive. I'm still here, and so are God's people. Thanks be to God.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I echo that. I will echo that, and I will thank you for joining us and walking with us. And let us pray for each other that our hopes and God's hopes and dreams for us will come true, and we will see them as we celebrate.
Yep.
In a few days. Take care now. Bye bye.
Thanks.